Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 139 for, what is this, April 16th, 2020, I think, maybe. That's a Thursday, right? We are going into our deep dive today, so we're going to jump into some news from the last week or so, a couple weeks. We got, I'll say three-ish news stories. We kind of expanded this first news story to about, five stories. So just kind of going over some game sales, and then we're going to some OS updates, and then we're going to go into Ghost of Tsushima. Tsushima? Is that how you say it, Swiss? Tsushima? Say it one more time.
Tsushima. Like
Tsushima.
The T and make the T and the S sound together, like Tsu.
Okay.
Say it just one more time because it's so soothing. So soothing when you say Tsushima.
You say it. So that is my fellow co-workers, I was going to say, kind of, co-hosts Swiss Guard. Swiss, how are you? How's your week been?
It's been pretty okay.
Oh, that's...
I don't know. It's I took time off this week, so
Oh,
on the one
okay.
hand I'm playing a little bit more games, but I'm also doing some chores around the house and whatnot.
Nice.
Staycation.
Yeah, pretty much have to.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how are you doing?
I think coworkers. I'm doing fine. I think coworkers
Coworkers.
is a pretty apt sentence because at this point we work just as closely as anybody in my office.
That's all right. A lot of video conferencing nowadays.
We've logged. Over the last 140 episodes, we've logged plenty of video conference hours. So
Well, I was gonna say we're probably far more experienced than many of our daytime coworkers are with regards to this stuff. So.
Oh, yeah. Some of us more than others, unfortunately. All right, so let's jump into the news. As I stated, we got some game sales, some game stuff coming up here. DB, why don't you lead us off here?
sure, hold on. Let me get my cat up on here, or my kids will walk through, and I'll chew on something as I'm talking, and get the real kind of work from home
Right.
experience there for everybody.
The barking in the background.
That's right. Well, actually, for this, the barking doesn't sound so bad, but a little different when it's your profession versus your hobby and your passion. So, speaking of which, here on the E2KG network, we always enjoy diving into sales numbers because it is not only our passion, but it is deliciously enjoyable as well. We got a number of different sales numbers to talk about. There's been some conversations in terms of what the COVID-19 pandemic will do for game sales. That actually we saw physical sales go up at a time when we thought we'd see digital sales go up, but actually, in some ways we're seeing sales of all games go up as people have time at home or forced to be home or out of work and have more time than they probably would want to spend. So we've got a couple of different things in some of these, like we have in the past. We're gonna have both some UK numbers. It's not NPD time yet, so we don't have a lot of March numbers, or we've had them already. But we also have some Japanese numbers here, along with some other random sales figures as well. So first, I want to look at some UK charts over the last 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago in the UK, we had the Resident Evil 3 enter in on the UK charts, but only at number 2. That the Resident Evil 3 did ship 2 million copies in 5 days, is what Capcom has said. Again, shipping and sell-through are different. So there's a lot out there in the channel, but whether or not people have access to it or are purchasing it. And in the UK, Call of Duty Modern Warfare still topped Resident Evil 3 last week, or 2 weeks ago, for the week of April 7th. And then looking at this past week in the UK, here we get Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 3 had dropped to number 7 So from number 2 to number 7, only in 2 weeks. And the new entry here on the UK charts was Final Fantasy VII, the remake, knocking out Call of Duty Modern Warfare, bringing it number 1 with Final Fantasy, and then Call of Duty number 2. Animal Crossing is holding right around the 3-4 spot. An interesting one here for last week's sales in the UK. Mario Kart Deluxe jumps up from 25. I feel like Casey Kasem moving up with a bullet from 25 um, to number 5 is Mario Kart 8. Maybe this is a result of families being home, more families being home, looking for things to do, more daycares being closed. The
It's a
more
pretty big jump, too.
it's a huge jump. Yeah, right. And again, these are mainly physical sales in the UK. Um, these are physical numbers, so it doesn't even count, any type of eShop sales or PlayStation Store, Xbox, things like that. So the UK has seen the Animal Crossing up there in number 3 and 4, but Animal Crossing over in Japan has sold uh, 2.6 million units, so it is selling incredibly well over there. Again, looking at Switch numbers, anything you get up into the 6 million for first party stuff, and you're starting to get into the Mario Zelda range. So having New Horizon after just uh, almost a month now, not quite even a month.
Yeah, just shy.
Well, actually, this is not a month for America, but for Japan, the first month that it was out, that it sold 2.6 million. Um, so a number of pieces there. And speaking of, as we were talking about things with a long tail like Mario Kart, Swiss, we also have another story that The Witcher had a great long tail, or has had a long tail, but the Netflix series, I think, has given The Witcher some additional life in its sales as well.
Yep, I think you're
That was
muted.
a segue, and then you muted yourself, and nobody caught it.
I
Ah,
we started from the beginning of the episode saying we're trying to simulate COVID-19
That's right, work experience.
meeting
That's right.
experience,
nice. There
and
you
it
go.
wouldn't be that if somebody absentmindedly didn't leave their mic on mute. So
Here,
now
let me
that
take a
that's out of
big
the
drink of my
way,
water into the microphone, too.
we'll go back to the professional production, that is normal E2KG quality. So,
That's right.
yeah, so what were we talking about? Witcher 3?
Witcher
So
3.
Witcher 3 sold last year in 2019, it sold 2.5 million. So The Witcher 3 came out in 2015.
Right.
Um, but
And
that 2.5 million is only on PC, correct?
with well over 2.5 million sold, um, so I'm trying to determine if that is all for the year or not. Or for all systems or just the one. 53.
Looks like it's for all systems. Is that
Yeah.
it is?
So according to CG Project's chart share below, 53% of all that 2.5 million. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're PC. Yep.
No, 53% was the 2.5 million. I'm sorry. If I'm trying to interpret their little chart here. 26. So it sold like in 2019. It looks like it sold upwards of uh, what does that
About
look like?
6 million?
7 million.
Yeah.
So total.
And that
But
includes 4 platforms at this point because we have
right.
Switch in there
The,
as well.
the big deal is and the reason why we threw this story in is like it was the best-selling year period for the PC, and that's where we're focusing on the PC. So it's very interesting. A game 5 years old. I would have expected it to revive, but it seems to be completely um, I mean it's this is like Grand Theft Auto 5 territory of Renaissance, right? I mean it's going pretty strong, and it's interesting that I think it's interesting that it's the PC. I've been trying to kind of mull over in my head why it would be the PC that seems to have a majority of the sales, and it wasn't more evenly dispersed across the PS4 and the Xbox One. And I really haven't come up with a good answer yet. It's just it
So I
is it that
will.
is it a digital physical thing and it's a lot easier to access digital stuff on like a Steam platform?
Could be. I mean, the other chart in the story there also talks about digital sales versus physical sales, and that of that 6.5, 7 million, that 82% were digital sales. In some ways, I think that the PC sold well, sold better than it had since its launch. Probably the combination of deep discounts, right? Like you could get it for maybe $15, $20 with the whole all the DLC. But also, I think at this point, you've got more graphics cards out in people's systems that probably in 2015, we were not even at a GTX spot, or we had just launched with GTX, and now we're in RTX. That people can run Witcher 5 in a much more fluid fashion than they could have back prior to this. So those are my two estimations. But
But I mean, it's great for um, great for CD Projekt Red as they. I mean, it's like a nice, like you said, like a little bit of wind at their back as they're getting ready to launch with Cyberpunk 2077. It gets the company, and I think if isn't I mean CD Projekt Red, everybody's like, it's The Witcher. They want it to be The Witcher 3, but like the future, right? I mean, do you think it's gonna be? Do you think having The Witcher selling this well now is I don't know if an indicator is the right word, but do you think that it helps with the hype for Cyberpunk 2077?
I think the inverse is probably another factor of why The Witcher went up as high as it did. Not only the Netflix show, but as press and kind of hype for Cyberpunk ramped up last year, that I could see that people were had an opportunity to go back to The Witcher as well.
Yeah, I don't know if we've actually talked about this before too, but and not just for this story, but for all these stories. But is there a reason they don't put the digital sales in there? Is it just a little harder to get that information, or people don't give it out as much? I think it is probably right.
Yeah, it's it's
Companies, I should
it's
say.
the ability to pull it off of different platforms is not, um, proprietary platforms are not always open up to that. Yep.
Okay, I was just wondering, just because overall it kind of seems like some of these numbers are just seem a little off. I guess you could say, or just like I don't understand, like you
Off
know,
in terms of titles being up there, or
yeah, just because you figured like I mean, we still have let's see what was. Actually, that was for April 4th for the UK, but you still had like Minecraft up there, in the top 10
yeah.
and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was just a question to me.
Although, I think in this past week there was also The Last of Us remastered jump back up into the top 10.
Yeah, jump 7 spots. Yep.
Right? And again, that could be people who, when the delay of Last of Us 2 got out there, that prompted people to go back and pick it up.
That's true.
Um, so, and again, Grand Theft Auto 5 is still right in there in the top 10 week after week. So,
That's, that still amazes me. Who doesn't?
yeah, right?
I
How
don't
many
under
times have people purchased it?
right.
Yeah. Well, the same can be said for Minecraft too. It's like I mean, and that was even cheaper than
That
Grand Theft
that
Auto,
one
sort of.
I can kind of understand because you buy it. It's not like I can buy one Minecraft license and have it on all my devices. But that's a game that lends itself to be played on several different platforms. Like Grand Theft Auto 5, where are you getting it? You're getting it on Steam,
Yeah.
the PS4 and the Xbox One. So I mean, at some point, once I make that Steam purchase, I don't have to buy it again. I don't. And do these numbers take into account, like, they're not counting DLC in this, right? I mean,
No,
how
these are just
they
retail
shouldn't. They should,
copies.
Just the
right?
Yep.
games. All right.
This doesn't, just like NPD, it's not counting, any type of DLC sales in there. The only time we really get good DLC numbers is when we get financial reports from 2K or other places, and that's where you see 2K's financial reports for the last 2 years that the majority of their income, or at least the over 50% of their income has been made up with microtransactions, with in-game purchases, things like that.
I like how on the UK chart for April 11th, ending April 11th, they have 192 sales increase, a percent sales increase for Ring Fit Adventure because it jumped back into number 25. Which I guess that brings me into kind of what we've been talking in the chat a little bit here and there about uh, are are these numbers being inflated because of what's going on? I mean, would these games, the newer games like Animal Crossing, Resident Evil, would they be doing as well if we didn't have this going on right now? I mean, what do you guys think? Is it a sign of the times, or is it kind of just business as usual right now? Obviously, I think all of us probably pretty much figured it was going to be a little bit slow this year. And it kind of is still with the new releases, but I mean, games themselves obviously are selling big now.
I would say that, I mean, the UK charts are a little difficult to decipher because you get, percentage increases, you get ranking, but you don't necessarily get units shipped, right? Like an NPD, you're still only going to get a ranking. You're not going to get the number of units. Like the disparity between the top two and 4, 5, 6 can be huge in an NPD chart because the big games are going to sell big. I
Right.
think for me, it's the the COVID related ones. The are the Minecraft. Maybe they're Mario Kart Deluxe. It's things that might are not big new releases. Um, Things that have come back into those charts that we are surprised at. Um, Ring Fit, I'm not really that surprised at because in part because of COVID, but also if there's not a whole lot in the channel in terms of being able to sell, jumping up 100 and some percentage is not hard if suddenly there's one more pallet out there in the wild when there wasn't before.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the 2 weeks though that you have here, I mean, there's some like staples, obviously, like Call of Duty and FIFA and Forza are big over there, but then like kind of the rest kind of just jumbles around and it's like totally new games in there. Excuse me. So I just found that kind of interesting. Just on a side note, kind of interesting that there's such a variance there. Like Persona was there last week, Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Order, Crash Bandicoot, Insane Trilogy, and then all of a sudden those things are just gone, at least out of the top 10.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so,
Persona, that was a new release. It was
yeah,
Persona 5 Royal. So
Star Wars stuck around both weeks. It's been hovering in there. Um, I'm not surprised. Like Final Fantasy VII is debuts at number one, right? I mean, it's a tentpole title and in a, like, a twilight year for the consoles. So um, Mario Kart 8 though, I think the one thing that they noted in the article, um, Mario Kart 8 fell out and then jumped back in, and they think that it might have to do something with the Switch itself being sold out because Mario Kart 8 is like one of those titles that you get a Switch, you get Mario Kart 8 to go with it, and
that's true.
people that have Switches tend to have Mario Kart 8 already, and it's kind of like one of those uh, bellwether games, I guess, for console sales. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Yep.
Yeah, that's one of the. They were doing a packing with that too, weren't they? At one point. Well, I know here in the U.S. I don't know, but maybe in the UK, but
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
yeah,
I think a question that I have with these numbers is back to the sales piece, is that the April is a whole lot less dense than we thought it was going to be a year ago too, right? Like in some ways it makes sense that the big new releases are selling because there's not nearly as much competition. And we've kind of talked about that in the past couple shows. Like, yes, there are new releases, but they're not nearly with the kind of the density that was initially planned for.
Had, I mean, I don't know how many deep dive episodes it was ago, but we had this slew of games that were all delayed, right? We have Last of Us 2, that was supposed to be spring, right?
Yeah.
Um, what else?
I think Final Fantasy was
Cyberpunk was
delayed.
supposed to be
Right.
April. Final Fantasy was supposed to be
Yeah.
February, and then was in April. The
Cyberpunk
Avengers
though
was
they
supposed to be May.
Cyberpunk they delayed a while back though. I think
Yeah.
that was pre-COVID.
Yes.
But
Yes, it was. Yep.
but yeah. Again though, we also talked about it. It's not I personally don't find it that trying that some of these games have slipped and from just like the I needed Minecraft dungeons like a month ago. It that but no, I think going in we all I had low expectations for this year, so I'm not really that worried about any of it. Um, to be honest, it's more I'm really just looking to see how all of this plays out the um when the new Xbox and the PlayStation 5 hit the stores. I think that's going to be much more of an indicator on how maybe the the virus has affected the games industry because I don't I'm a little surprised that like we talked about the hardware sales kind of going up and so I think there's been a little bit of an effect but I think games are one of those industries that um are probably going to just the nature of the media they're going to be a little bit more resilient I think um what's going to happen is we're gonna have to wait and see how the economic impact like affects it down the line. Like right now, they're not hurting like a movie theater's hurting, but they are entertainment. So if people get furloughed and business and small businesses close, that eventually is going to have a ripple effect into the industry. But right now, I I don't I don't really feel like there's been a huge impact yet.
No, I'm assuming too down the line we're gonna get more delays just because of the way everything is kind of going right now. It might be kind of hard to working on games right now. Yeah, you can do some stuff at your home and programming and stuff like that, software development. But it's kind of hard to if one department has to upload and then re-download all this game like a whole game or even just a part of game. I mean that's a lot of data that's got to jump around and it takes time, so it's got to wait. So
The the bandwidth for being in the same room is still higher than being on in a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams meeting. Just being able to communicate that with a whiteboard, it
yeah,
sounds old school, but it works better. And
yeah,
then, the like you said with the delays there and then just the supply chain delays are going to affect I mean, given that it's a console year, those supply chain delays are going to have I think a pretty profound impact too. So
yeah. I don't think I didn't put it on here. I don't think any of us put it on here, but I think there was a story about that, wasn't there, for the
Yeah,
PS5?
just today the PS5 said basically acknowledged what we're talking about, that the supply will be limited during the first year.
Yeah,
Which again is not a surprise. I think it is kind of them hedging their bets and kind of managing expectations. That this is we are going to be closer, I think, to what we were in 2006 with the PS3, right? in terms of availability than we were with the PS4 being able to walk in and grab something. I think it's going to be a much more limited supply and slow to resupply as well.
Have we seen any news with regards to either the Xbox or the PlayStation 5 with regards to launch titles? Other is Halo Infinite supposed to be it's supposed to be a launch title,
I
right?
think it
It's
was supposed
supposed
to
to
be,
be,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But who knows now,
They
though?
exactly.
Right.
I think that's the question.
Because
No, I don't know that we've really seen launch titles.
I think that's what when I mean when a new system for me when the new system comes out, is it I I don't just buy the system for the system. If the launch lineup is like weak, I don't mind waiting. So I'm kind of curious. We got I haven't really been hearing a lot of hype for there's a new whatever coming out. They did the little bit of a teaser for Halo, I guess, but I I mean I guess that was supposed to be what E3 was going to really do, be the springboard, and now that's not really happening, and in the way that they had hoped for. So
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Xbox side, that was the only game I think they really said that more than likely was going to be a launch title or supposed to be a launch title was Halo Infinite. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their plans are, and I don't think PlayStation has ever said any games were going to be launched, right? As far as we know.
we may
No,
just simply be too early, I guess, in
Hmm.
the launch cycle, I guess, whatever you want to call it, the run up to
Yeah.
really know. But um, yeah, that all plays into it too, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we obviously kind of see that with the modern with this generation of consoles, with at least with the Switch. I mean, those have been selling out pretty much worldwide. So, I mean, obviously, because people have to stay home, they got to do something, got to keep their kids occupied or just keep themselves occupied. Switch is a good system for that. Just sit in the couch or the bed or wherever in the house, and you can just play that. So, uh,
that seems like a good transition into our next story because now not only can you play your Switch, but you can play around with the new firmware update as well.
That's right. 10.0.0 came out on April 13th, with a couple days ago, a few days ago. I'll run down the features real quick, and then we can talk about them a little bit more if you would like. So we got added bookmark features to the news, option to transfer software data between the system and the SD card, which I thought you could kind of do before, but I guess it goes into a little bit more detail here. Added option to remap the control buttons. Yes. New section in user settings for play activity settings. And then we got some new profile icons from Animal Crossing. So that's nice. So the big one for me here is the controller remapping, the button remapping, I should say. So you can do this on the Joy-Con L, the Joy-Con R, which is nice of them that they allowed you to do that on both of them. The Switch, the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, so the official one, and then on the Switch Lite systems, you can remap the buttons. So it's kind of nice, just because if you're not, if you don't work on or play on the other systems, or at least on the Xbox, you have the X, Y, the A and B on both systems, but unfortunately, they're switched, no pun intended, on the Nintendo system. So usually the A button, well, I shouldn't say usually, on the Xbox, the A button's on the bottom kind of cross section of the buttons, and then it's B next to it, and then you got X and Y, but it's reversed for both A and B and X and Y on the Switch version. So for me at least, I switch between both systems, I'll play both, and that kind of throws me off. So it's kind of nice that I'll be able to kind of I'm just going to map it to the Xbox side, just because it feels more natural. They have the A button on the bottom like that, and the B next to it. So I don't know. That's just me. The system transfer data. So now you can transfer downloadable software or update data and DLC from the memory on the system to an SD card. So that's kind of nice. I didn't realize that was locked onto the system before. So I always thought it kind of went to the SD card, but I guess not. And then obviously they say, take note, because still some save data and update data will stay on cannot be transferred to the SD card. So I'm assuming, like I said, it's just probably mostly save data, maybe some minor data here and there.
Depends on the game. I mean, I think
Yeah.
about like NBA 2K that's taken 5 gigs on the memory, or 5 gigs on the system memory, and then it'll still take up 23, 26 gigs on a SD card. So um, yeah, depending on how they've kind of parsed that out, and again, what that division looks like, and how games decide that is a different question.
Yeah, I was looking after I had updated. I was kind of looking through the data management. I didn't really see any difference, at least for the games I have. So I mean, I pretty much had everything except for maybe a couple of the first party Nintendo titles. Still had a little bit of data on the system, which I think was like Splatoon 2 and maybe Zelda or Mario, one of the two, or maybe both. But otherwise, most everything was just I had everything on the SD card. So I don't. Maybe I just lucked out and have certain
Nice,
games.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's
So I
good.
don't know.
Well, one of the other pieces that you can luck out with is this data mining aspect that somebody we've got. Uh, the firmware also includes somebody had data mined, and this is on a variety of Nintendo sites that picked this up. Um, a different hardware model called, or at least codenamed NX ABCD, and the kind of rumor floating around aspect of this is that it's one, it is naming a different hardware model, but also that it seems to provide a second screen support. And so, there's what it sounds more like a second display of sorts is the actual language that has been data mined, which is also strange because then it's not just like a second screen like a DS. It could be, you know, maybe something more like the Wii U gamepad, or um, you know, some way that you could. Um, heard one podcast, or John Baum was talking about this, where they're saying that potentially the of sorts, a second display of sorts, could potentially also mean that you have an ability to export it to TV, right, without having to use a dock. That maybe there's another way to do that. Um, so the of sorts piece is the part here where it's kind of not going to be a clamshell switch, but it's going to be probably some functionality more than anything. But again, this is all just a rumor. So
Rumor and speculation. Yeah, I mean that way. If there was a next generation 3DS, obviously it would just be regular. But I mean Switch with dual screens, that would be huge though. So I don't know. I don't see them going that way. But I mean this is Nintendo, so you never know. Um, the separate like if it was like a tablet style, like kind of like the Wii U, that would make sense, I suppose. Maybe you can even, I doubt it, but use your old Wii U tablet on there. But I don't really see that
yeah, I doubt
happening.
that. No,
Yeah,
I mean the
Yeah,
other piece could be yeah, I don't know. That would be a second display of sorts. Could also be some way of like DS games on the system. Being able to partition out the display in such a way. I'm not sure. What were you going to say, Swiss?
I was just gonna say like the way I imagined it based off your just you know overview is almost emulating the Wii U tablet. Like the Switch itself becomes, I guess, both components of the Wii U, but then you still have your, because there's no hardware box anymore, and you have the Switch itself is like the gamepad, but you can still use the TV as the second screen.
just beaming
So
it to the dock or something, or
somehow,
yeah.
yeah. But I thinking about it, I've never been super excited about multiple screens. Like I don't. A lot of the times, I think it really took Nintendo, like their super creative teams to utilize two screens well. And for the most part, I feel like a lot of games, the bottom screen was always just a throwaway. It's like, oh, okay, I have my inventory
Yeah,
or
it's a
a
map.
map or something on
Yeah.
it. And so I don't know.
Yeah, it always seemed like the first party ones actually try to use it a little bit more, like you said, a little bit more than anything. But I mean, there was only certain games that I really liked it for. Obviously, like for Mario Maker, that was a good one to have that second screen. We can kind of just play
For
with
me,
the.
it was Professor Layton.
Oh, but yeah, yeah. Any other comments or anything? Anything that you know jumped out at you? I mean, it's not a whole lot on this update, but
So you were excited. You said, "Oh yeah," about the button mapping. Is it really just between because of switching between Xbox or PlayStation and the Switch, so that you can get your cancels and your confirms all in the same way?
yeah, just so I can, yeah, because I get really, especially playing with Fortnite, because obviously the buttons are different, and I just get confused and I start hitting everything, different. And even like when I used to play Call of Duty and stuff too, stuff would be kind of mixed up. So I actually, I think on the X, well, it had been on the Xbox, because I have the Elite controller, I can go in there and fiddle with the controls. So I was able to match it up with I actually did it the other way around. I matched it to my Pro controller from the Nintendo side and matched it that way. But then still, like if I go into other games, it's like it's kind of messed up. So I'd like to just get it all in one setting and I'll be done with it. So it'll be nice.
The question is if that setting go with the profile or for the Switch. So is your son gonna come behind you and be completely baffled as to why everything's mixed up? And knowing how Nintendo seems to do everything, I would bet money that it's a console level setting and not a profile level setting.
Yeah, I
But
thought.
I'll have to play. I haven't looked at it. I'll have to play with it.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to actually do it yet, and I thought I saw something about that on just one of the articles I was reading, but I don't remember like what they had said or if maybe they were just bringing it up like you were, just to try to figure it out. So I don't know.
Oh, wait, here we go. On each system, up to 5 favorite combinations can be saved. So uh, it doesn't. Hopefully, you can tie one of your configurations to your profile. So if you
Yeah,
just enter a game with your profile, it'll do it. But we'll see.
you just gotta leave one of those as the default, I
Yeah.
guess. All right. So speaking of mappings, let's jump into Ghost of Tsushima, Mr. Swissguard. What do we got going here? We got some news coming from this game
Yeah.
of sorts.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like old school preview tidbits. So I guess they did an interview with official PlayStation magazine, or they're doing their hype rounds. But so in the preview, it claims, and we got this article from PushSquare.com. Uh, the Seattle-based developer wants you to quote use landmarks and your knowledge of the world to navigate it. So Sucker Punch is no stranger to creating open worlds, but the fairly minimalist nature of the environments is a bit of a departure for the developer. Oh, I'm sorry, I passed over the lead. There's no waypoints. I thought it was going to lead up into that article, but see, I'm operating without waypoints too, obviously. Um, so yeah, they're not going to have your little icon on the map that you just go towards. You're going to be wandering around. They said using the story, and time supposedly ticking as you're going. Um, so I kind of curious if that's a limiting factor. I mean, are we gonna have like a Majora's Mask scenario here, or is it just kind of a thing? So Valkyria, what was that old school game where you had limit Valkyria profile? I think you had a time mechanic as well. You can only do so much. Uh, but yeah, the big thing is no waypoints, and I'm actually kind of excited about that because I feel like when you have like a map with just a bunch of waypoints on it, it just becomes a checklist, and you're not really exploring. So I think if it's done well and they provide enough um, enough I don't want to say use the term magic in the story, but if the lore and the setting is well done, this can be excellent. But if they do a poor job of that, then you're just gonna feel like a chicken with your head cut off running around. So I don't know. Well, it's remains to be seen whether this will be effective or not.
Yeah, I guess it depend.
Ass-
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Assassin's Creed Odyssey did the same thing, where you could turn the waypoints on or off, and then the NPCs would give you kind of enough information to kind of say that it was west of a mountain. Give if you talk to enough people, you kind of could start piecing that together. So I could see this being similar.
Yeah, I guess there's two things with this. I guess how big the open world is. I don't know if they've actually said that or not. I don't know if they really compare it to any of the other games. Because obviously, if it's like super huge, like I don't know, like a Skyrim or something, or anything like that, that's a pretty big deal. And I don't know how varied the environment will be. I mean, I guess that's a big part of it too. So obviously, if you have a lot of just grasslands or forest, that's going to be kind of hard to say. Hey, it's over here by this cluster of trees. So there's a bunch of cluster of trees. I don't know which one. And then I guess the other thing is, um, I forgot. I lost my train of thought. What my other point was going to be, or my other uh, point was going to be. I can't remember now.
Oh, here, I'll interrupt you again and then see
Thank
if you
you.
remember.
Go
So,
ahead.
sorry about interrupting you the
No, no,
first
that's all right.
time. Yeah, no, I mean, it seems to go with kind of the style of game. I think it is a question, as you said, Brian, without knowing how big the open world is, you don't know how impactful this could be. But kind of the kind of samurai, the wandering samurai aspect of this, I think plays into the fact that it's not a checklist, like you said, Swiss. Like it becomes I'm gonna meander the countryside, stumbling into somebody who needs my help type of thing. There's a thematic element that plays into your.
I remember now. So now they say, or at least Swish you said, because I don't know if they really said it here, but so there's no waypoint, excuse me, on the on-screen map, or are they going to have, like, say if you hit start or whatever and go into like a big map, will you be able to do stuff there? I mean, I don't know if they've really said that, or it could go that way, I suppose, and they'll keep the on-screen map kind of clean, at least for doing it that way, I suppose. Um, and then
There's enough in the article to
yeah,
say one way or the other.
that's why I didn't really see anything. So, but and like you said, with Odyssey, at least you could turn it on and off. So I mean, I'm assuming that this is just not going to be there at all, right? It's just not going to be an option. I'm assuming, at least according to the article, it looks like that.
Sounds like at least it's the well. They say it's doing away with the irritating waypoints, hoping that you'll explore its open world naturally. So, t- if this is a pretty how accurate, this is like the second and third hand um, story is, but that sounds to me like the default mode would be that way, and perhaps you could turn them on if they're hoping that you do it.
Right. That's
Um,
true. Yeah.
it implies there's an option there. I felt like Odyssey though still had even I think I played it with that off with them off, and I still felt like there was a lot of information available on the map. So um, oddly enough, uh, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild um, is actually pretty limited with the waypoints. If you do a side quest and you set it as the active side quest, it'll put an icon on your map, but it's like where you have to end the side quest. So you still have to kind of figure it out on your own. Where the heck it. So the first one of the first side quests you get missions you get is the captured memories where you have the pictures on your tablet, whatever they call it, and you have to go to the spots in the world and Link recall like, well, okay, so there's a picture of, whatever the horse statue. You get to it in the real world and then he has a recollection of from when the past from that scene when the picture was taken. And none of those are listed, none of those are on there. you can't activate that quest and see where you have to go. You just see, oh, when I'm done finding the pictures, I could go back and talk to this person. So that game was much more also um, kind of free form, like you were talking about with the Wandering Samurai. I mean, even you don't really have it. There's no real time limit into it. It's just you fight Ganon when you want to fight him. So it,
Well, and even there in Breath of the Wild, right? Like even when you can set your own waypoints or markers, you only have you have a limited amount that you can put down. You can only pin what, six things, four things on a map. Like you could
yeah,
be in a
there's like
tower and
four
still
or
see.
five of the pins to see. You have the ability to do some more stamps on your map, but those don't. I think those appear on your mini map, but like they're not going to be like in the horizon if you zoom ahead to take a look. But yeah, I've been playing Zelda a little bit recently, so that's kind of I guess that lends itself to me kind of getting excited about this again. That was one of I think the drawbacks for Horizon Zero Dawn, to be honest, for me was
You know, when
the
I first saw this article, go ahead. Say what were you gonna say? One of
I
the
was just gonna
drawbacks
say
of Horizon.
the way that it was a little bit too easy to have the waypoints on the map. It wasn't 100% that way, but I think that it could have been a little bit more of an exploration type experience if they hadn't held your hand a little bit too much.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I was gonna say when I saw this article, I assumed that it was going to be a delay for Ghost of Tsushima and not a new story about actual gameplay or game design elements. I'm so conditioned to think of it as a delay piece here. So I'm the fact that it's not, and the fact that it's still kind of coming, or at least it's scheduled to come at the end of June, will be interesting to see if that changes.
Yeah,
They
we'll see.
actually, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead,
I was just
Mike.
gonna say we'll see. Go ahead.
At the bottom of the article, they actually linked to another one of their articles that push Square from the uh, the 2nd of April, and it said that Sony, I guess it was they mentioned that they announced that they delayed Last of Us Part 2 and Iron Man VR. Um, but uh, according to this article, Japanese Giant stress there are no delays to report, but we'll keep you updated. So as of a couple of weeks ago, it's still on track to have the June 26th release date, but we'll see.
Yes, we never know what's gonna happen. Um, I mean, well, I know they said this is not going to be obviously this is PS4, but I mean this could be something they can throw on the PS5, I guess, if they really wanted to. I mean, it looks pretty good actually, even for the PS4. So, graphically,
I think with all the backwards compatibility talk, right? You just kind of have to de facto look at Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2 as de facto PS5 launch titles at this point. Do you kind of look at them that way, or do you feel like they're going to have some major tentpole type things coming in November with the system launch? I just personally have been looking at them this way, and even with Breath of the Wild, it feels like that can be a thing now, where it kind of launches at the swan song of one system, but it's also kind of there for the next system,
yeah,
and you can look at it either way.
kind of bridging them.
Yeah.
When was The Last of Us Part Two supposed to come out again? Originally?
Sep- uh, it
Originally in
was,
May.
Oh man, okay,
and
all
now
right.
it's September,
That's
I think.
oh, did they give a
Well,
date, or are they say
no, they haven't
indefinite?
Is it?
given a date.
Or
I
they
thought,
haven't given the date yet.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought. Yeah.
I'm getting
Okay.
confused with something else then.
yeah,
Okay.
that was Avengers. That was supposed to be May, and now is the beginning of September.
Okay.
Which also feels like the fact that if there's not you know that feels like it's going to be so close to the release of the consoles that it seems hard to put it out there and what should be a big IP. So
Yeah. And Avengers that was delayed even before the COVID, right? Okay, that's what I
yes,
thought.
yep.
So that was just them working on the game, I guess, a little bit more.
Yeah, and they actually put out a trailer this week, a new trailer with some additional gameplay, and showed a few more back-end systems. Um, uh, some of the inventory stuff feels very, some of the gameplay they showed was Iron Man. Uh, feels very Anthem like, which kind of makes sense since Anthem felt like Iron Man. Um, but you have, that it basically said that a lot of different looks, different armor inventory things that would give you, it's a loot based game, and so there were some purple things, there were some blue things, you got a little bit more of some story piece, but it gave you a little, I don't know, it seemed like a little more in the menu than what I've seen before.
Okay. All right. So that's all our scheduled news stories. Anything else you guys wanted to mull over before we head out here? I had a couple of stories if we had time. I mean, it's obviously we kind of talked about the Switch system selling out worldwide. So and Nintendo promised, at least to the Japan side, that they're getting more systems on the way. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about? Nothing? All right. So that is episode 139 in the books today. Stop a little bit early, maybe 10 minutes earlier than usual. So just before the hour. It's good. Next week, we will have our GX show. So that's our gamer experience show. And darn it, I forgot to see who was going to be on that show. I don't know if somebody wants to check that real quick. Where we'll talk about our games, what we've been playing the last few weeks. And what was the picks plays for that episode? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, the assignment was to find somebody to play with, since we're all kind of locked up. Whether it's a co-host or an old friend or family member, but to reach out and game with somebody and enjoy that time together. So,
And I can report that next week's episode will be Prime and myself.
Okay, yeah, I just saw that. So that's gonna be super short because I've only been playing like one game this past couple weeks. Same thing I was playing last time. But we'll see if maybe I'll jump into something else in the meantime.
That's not the best. That's not the best pairing for variety.
Yeah, no.
Well, maybe I'll come over and join you guys. So,
I can say that I did not see that Pix Plays. I wasn't on last week's episode, so I kind of saw the Pix Plays late. But coincidentally enough, I had actually done that, reached out to some friends of mine that are non-E2KG alumni and had already played. So I kind of
Nice.
got that checked off ahead of schedule.
Well, there you go.
excellent. There you go.
We got something to talk about.
Yeah.
We'll fill it with pick plays all next week. That's all. So join us next week for that Thursday and next Thursday, and obviously you can find this podcast hopefully within a few days, and all our other podcasts on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and I always forget the last one. So then I guess I think it's like Podcaster or something like that. I can't remember. So check us out there. DB Swiss, thank you for joining me tonight. Thanks for conversation. Hopefully you guys have a good week and weekend. We will see you next week. Good night.
Oh, for sure.